In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King joins worshippers in performing Eid prayers at Al-Sharif Al-Hussein bin Ali Mosque in Aqaba and exchanges Eid good wishes over the telephone with Arab and Muslim leaders. Muslims in the region celebrate Eid with prayers for peace and security as the warring sides in Syria continue the fighting and as Iraqis witness another day of violence with a bomb blast in Kirkuk killing at least 8 people. And Iran presents a proposal at talks with 6 world powers over its long-disputed nuclear program, and Iranian officials say it is too early to progress in negotiations. Good evening and welcome to the news. Kul aam wa antum bikhair. His Majesty King Abdullah joined worshippers in performing Eid al-Adha prayers at Al-Sharif Al-Hussein bin Ali Mosque in the city of Aqaba. King Abdullah and the worshippers listened to the Eid sermon delivered by Chief Justice Ahmed, in which he highlighted the great significance of this holy day when Muslims are united, seeking God's blessings and expiating their sins. And on this occasion, His Majesty exchanged Al-Adha Eid good wishes with a number of Arab and Muslim leaders. His Majesty and Crown Prince Al-Hussein also received cables of good wishes from Arab and Muslim leaders, as well as senior Jordanian civic and military officials. Well wishes prayed to the Almighty to give His Majesty continued good health and the Jordanian people progress and prosperity. In Saudi Arabia, about 1.5 million Muslim pilgrims carried out the first day of Eid ritual of Jamarat, the symbolic stoning of the devil and the rejection of temptation. The pilgrims collect stones at Muzdalifah in the days preceding Eid al-Adha, and the pebbles being thrown at walls at the Jamarat bridge on 3 occasions over the next 3 days. And as Muslims around the world mark Eid al-Adha with traditional celebrations, including family gatherings around a feast of meat and children wearing new clothes, many in the region feel they have nothing to celebrate amid the regional turmoil. In Syria, President Bashar al-Assad made a rare public appearance this morning, attending prayers at Damascus Mosque to mark the start of the Eid holiday. Elsewhere, Eid al-Adha was mainly observed with prayers. More in this report.
Every year, millions of Muslims around the world sacrifice an animal, a sheep, a camel, a goat, as part of Eid al-Adha festival. It is a time for families to celebrate together. Muslims in Jerusalem streamed into a compound housing in Al-Aqsa Mosque past sunrise to join prayers for Eid al-Adha. The 4-day feast starts today for Muslims across the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. In the Syrian capital, residents did their best to mark the Eid as fighters battled on, ignoring the holiday. For Syrian refugees, the Eid is a reminder of missed relatives and loved ones. At Zatari camp in Mafraq, Syrians celebrated Eid, longing to return home. Ahmed Awais, who fled from Damascus to escape the violence, says Eid is not the same when celebrated away from family and friends.
نتمنى بالعيد يعني نفس كل الأعياد يعني إنه نكون ببلدنا بالشام.
We pray for this Eid, as we do for all Eids, that we will be in our country, in Damascus, amongst my family and friends. My family is now dispersed, some in Damascus, my uncles and aunts, and we are here alone. We left Syria by force.
After performing Eid prayers, a group of Syrian men and women gathered to listen to the Sheikh's sermon, who reminded them of the struggle of the Syrian people inside and outside of Syria. Syrian refugees in Lebanon don't feel they have anything to celebrate. Many refugees living in makeshift tents in the Bekaa Valley felt Eid was just like any other day. Most of the boys wore the same old clothes and played between the tents with their toy weapons, pretending they were fighters in what they called a war game. The girls walked between the tents, mainly helping their mothers. Halima is a Syrian refugee woman in her 50s. She lives in a tent with her son and his family of 7. Halima said she left Syria 5 months ago and lost any desire to celebrate Eid.
Believe me, our days are not good because there is no desire anymore. The desire? No. Our families are far away. Where is the Eid? My daughter is there. My family are there in Syria. We just hope God helps us.
Egyptian marking the holiday amidst continuing political turmoil turned out hundreds in central Cairo to offer prayers. Many Egyptians hope for peace during Eid al-Adha holiday and for a long-term resolution to the polarization in Egypt that pits supporters of the new outlawed Muslim Brotherhood against those who support the military's overthrow of Morsi.
I wish you a good year and for everybody to be happy and all the nations to be happy. We are brothers, Muslims and Christians, and we all live in one land. We thank all the countries that stood beside Egypt and stood beside us.
In Iraq, Sunni Muslims observe the Eid, gathering at mosques at dawn for prayer, praying to God for an end to the daily bombing and attack that plague their country. The prayers were performed under heavy security with police guarding entrance to mosques, blocking roads and body searching people entering.
رسالتي إلى الجميع حكاما ومحكومين.
My message to all officials and people who want good for this country and who want an end to the current ordeal and sedition is to be united and exploit such seasons and events to come closer, to show mutual affection and help each other.
Eid al-Adha commemorates the biblical prophet Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son to God, and it is the second most important festival in the Muslim calendar. The holiday is normally a time for families to celebrate together, but unrest in the region has seen many forgo its usual rituals. Farah Ajlouni for the news at 10.
Eid al-Adha did not stop the warring sides in Syria. Syrian Air Force jets and helicopters bombed rebel-held districts across the country, while rebel fired rockets into the heart of the capital, Damascus. Activists said warplanes bombed targets in rebel strongholds to the east and south of the capital. Video footage showed explosions and thick columns of smoke rising above the town of Dariyah on the southwestern edge of Damascus. Rebel-fired rockets and mortars into the old city and the Mazra'ah district city center. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also said Air Force helicopters carried out 11 bombing raids on the rebel town of Latamna in Hama province. It said the helicopters dropped large improvised explosives or barrel bombs on the town. And in neighboring Iraq, a bomb exploded outside a mosque in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk as worshippers. Also in Afghanistan, a bomb attack on a mosque has killed the governor of a province after the capital, Kabul, as he was making an address on the first day of Eid al-Adha. Arsala Jamal was governor of Logar province, a strategically important province on the southern approaches to Kabul and home to one of Afghanistan's richest mines. Jamal was close to President Hamid Karzai and was a senior official in his successful campaign election in 2009. No one claimed responsibility. Over to Geneva, where Iran has resumed talks with 6 world powers over its long-disputed nuclear program. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, leading his country's delegation to the talks, said it was too early to say whether Iran and the 6 world powers made progress towards resolving the decade-long standoff over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Iran said it presented a proposal capable of achieving a breakthrough over its contested nuclear program, but added it was too soon to judge. This report has more.
At the start of talks in Geneva with 6 world powers, Iran presents its proposals aimed at a breakthrough over its disputed nuclear program. Details of the Iranians' proposals were not available, but Michael Mann, the spokesman for the European Union's foreign policy chief said there was a sense of, quote, cautious optimism.
We have come here with a sense of cautious optimism and a great sense of determination, because we believe it is really time now for tangible results.
With growing concerns of a new Middle East war, international pressure has intensified over Iran's nuclear ambition. Raising hopes for an end to the gridlock, Tehran launched the two-day meeting in Switzerland, bringing the U.S., Russia, China, France, Britain and Germany to the table. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi.
We are very serious. We are not here to just symbolically, we are not here to waste our time. We are serious for target-oriented negotiations between Iran and the other side, and we believe that the plan that we have introduced has the capacity to reach them.
The talks mark Iran's first negotiations since the election in June of relative moderate President Hassan Rouhani. In the past, the six powers have demanded that Iran halt uranium enrichment to 20%.
To try to stem the flow of rickety boats and prevent further tragedies in the Mediterranean, Italy began deploying more ships, long-range helicopters, an airplane equipped with night vision, as well as unmanned drone aircraft. Italy's regional parliament declared a state of emergency today in a bid to tap additional funds to help its struggling immigration services after a further 370 migrants were rescued at sea today. Here's more.
Italian government officials and humanitarian organizations met in Rome to discuss the migrant issue, as the deployed ships, helicopters and unmanned drones to stop further shipwrecks that have drowned hundreds already this month. Today, 370 people have been plucked from the sea after the Italian Navy launched Operation Mare Nostrum to prevent further shipwrecks.
The operation will have two main purposes. One is search and rescue, the other one is patrolling. At the moment, Amnesty International Italy has two main questions. One is which one of these two functions will be given priority. And of course, we expect that priority will be given to search and rescue and not to patrolling. And the second question is, what about cooperation between Italy and Libya?
If this is the real meaning, we certainly would agree to it, but it is to say, wouldn't it be better to think about means that the people are not obliged even to go on these boats, so as it was said this morning here, to advance the possibility of having a legal entry into Europe, not only to Italy, of course, not only when they are on the high sea, but already before departing from the Libyan coast or from the Egyptian coast or from the Turkish coast.
A naval frigate and a patrol boat brought some 290 people, mostly Syrians, Somalians and Eritreans, to the southern island of Lampedusa. A merchant vessel later picked up about 80 people adrift on a large raft in Libyan waters and took them to Sicily. Meanwhile, Italian finance and customs forces stopped a migrant mothership in international waters, which was believed to have left from the Egyptian coastline. 17 people, believed Egyptians, were arrested on the ship that was stopped in international waters some 230 miles off the island of Sardinia. Now, the Syrian civil war and unrest in Egypt and other Arab and African countries are fueling the flow of refugees, many of whom have to pass through an increasingly unstable Libya. Humanitarian organizations say the Italian measures may leave more migrants stranded in the Sahara Desert or delivered into the hands of Libyan militias and crime groups, which are known to have beaten, raped and imprisoned migrants in the past. Hala Dababne for the News at 10.
A powerful earthquake measuring 7.2 struck Ireland's populous tourist in the Philippines, killing at least 74 people and causing widespread damage to infrastructure. Low-rise buildings collapsed on at least 2 islands, and historic churches cracked and crumbled during the quake, which cut power and transport links and forced hospitals to evacuate patients. At least 65 people died from collapsed structures and landslides on the island of Bohol, south of the capital. Roads cracked, with many declared impassable due to landslides, prompting the authorities to declare a state of calamity in hard-hit provinces. And to the U.S. crisis, Republicans in the House of Representatives failed to reach internal consensus on how to break an impasse on the federal budget that could result in damaging default on the country's debt. House Republican leaders proposed a plan to reopen the government and avoid debt default, but Senate Democrats and the White House have rejected the plan. U.S. President Barack Obama was to meet at this hour with House Democratic leaders to discuss their options. In a statement earlier, the White House said the Democrats and Republicans in the Senate have been working in good faith on the fiscal impasse and that it was time for the House to do the same. But even if Democrats and Republicans agree, others say it could be Wednesday before the U.S. Senate sign off on a plan which is very close to a Thursday deadline when the Obama administration says it will reach its borrowing limit and risk default.
Whether this progress is real, I think there has been.
And over to the world of style, Mercedes-Benz Japan Fashion Week kicked off in Tokyo with Japanese designer Tamai Hirokawa introducing her kimono-inspired designs. An annual participant of Japan Fashion Week, that brand was pleased to be the first Japanese designer to open up the 2013 Spring-Summer runway schedule. While nearly all design houses have taken place in the fashion week utilize indoor venues to host their runways, Hirokawa preferred an outdoor show set next to a serene garden instead. The models dressed in modern adaptations of handmade Japanese kimono designs. In particular, the designer emphasized the Japanese art of layering as well as detailed belts. Hirokawa hopes her designs will engage rather than alienate those unfamiliar with Japanese traditional fashion culture by creating attractive and wearable Japanese kimono dress elements for everyday attire. Mexico's football team received a heated reception in San Jose as it flew into Costa Rica ahead of a crucial final CONCACAF qualifier that will make or break the embattled side's World Cup dream. Standing in their way is second-place Costa Rica, who coasted into Brazil last month after an impressive 3-1 home victory over the United States. With Costa Rica already through and Mexico on the brink of possible World Cup elimination, Costa Rican coach Jorge Luis Pinto vowed no let-up against his troubled rivals. Former Manchester United manager Alex Ferguson unveiled a road sign for a street renamed in his honour near the club's Old Trafford ground. The 71-year-old, who retired earlier this year after 26 years in charge of the club, was also awarded the honorary Freedom of the Borough of Trafford on the day that a road previously known as Waters Reach was renamed Sir Alex Ferguson Way. Ferguson won the English Premier League 13 times, the Champions League twice, and the FA Cup 5 times during his time at the club. Finally, a quick look at the weather forecast. Cool tonight in the highlands and pleasant elsewhere with northwesterly moderate winds. Nice weather is in the forecast tomorrow across the hilly areas and relatively hot in the Jordan Valley, where temperatures hover around the mid-30s. Winds will be northwesterly moderate. South, the Gulf of Aqaba should expect some moderate conditions tomorrow with northerly brisk winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here is a reminder of the day's stories. His Majesty the King joins worshippers in performing Eid prayers at Al-Sharif Al-Hussein bin Ali Mosque in Aqaba and exchanges Eid good wishes over the telephone with Arab and Muslim leaders. Muslims in the region celebrate Eid with prayers for peace and security as the warring sides in Syria continue the fighting and as Iraqis witness another day of violence. blast in Kirkuk, killing at least 8 people. And Iran presents a proposal at talks with 6 world powers over its long-disputed nuclear program, and Iranian officials say it is too early to announce progress in negotiations. And that's the end of tonight's news. I'm Ra'ad Al-Toush. Thank you for watching.